Have you ever wondered why the same patterns keep repeating in your relationships? The same misunderstandings, the same disappointments, the same feeling of being unseen, unheard, or unvalued. What if the people you attract are not random? What if they are mirrors, reflecting back the parts of yourself you have yet to face? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So let me ask you this. What if the wrong people keep finding you because somewhere deep inside you are still calling them in? Imagine standing in front of a mirror, but instead of your reflection, you see the faces of everyone who has ever hurt you, used you, or left you feeling empty. What do they all have in common? The answer is not in them. It's in you. Not because you are broken, not because you are unworthy, but because somewhere along the way, you learn to equate love with pain, attention with sacrifice, and connection with loss. And so, unconsciously, you keep recreating the conditions that confirm what you already believe. That you must earn love, that you must be needed to be valued, that you must give until there is nothing left of you to give. But here's the truth. You are not attracting the wrong people. You are attracting the people who resonate with the unresolved parts of your own psyche. The ones who trigger your wounds do so because those wounds are still open, still waiting to be acknowledged. And every time you react, every time you beg for understanding, plead for fairness, or shrink yourself to keep the peace, you are not changing the pattern. You are reinforcing it. So what happens when you stop? What happens when, instead of chasing, you withdraw? When instead of explaining, you observe? Jung called this the shadow work, the process of facing what we have disowned within ourselves. Because the people who irritate us, who disappoint us, who seem to take without giving, they are not the problem. They are the messengers. And the message is simple. You have not yet learned how to hold your own boundaries, how to value your own presence, how to choose yourself. This is where the real work begins. Think of the last person who left you feeling drained, unappreciated, or misunderstood. What did they awaken in you? Was it a fear of abandonment, a suspicion that you are not enough, a quiet rage at being taken for granted? These are not their emotions. They are yours, and they have been there long before this person ever entered your life. Jung believed that we project our unconscious onto others, casting them as characters in the story we are too afraid to confront. The partner who never commits, they reflect your own fear of intimacy. The friend who only reaches out when they need something, they mirror your own inability to say no. The lover who is hot and cold, they embody your own ambivalence toward love itself. So the question is not, why do I keep attracting the wrong people? The question is, what part of me still believes I deserve this? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. We do not attract what we want. We attract what we believe we are worthy of. And if you keep finding yourself in relationships where you are undervalued, where you are the giver, the healer, the one who must shrink to make space for another's ego, then somewhere in the hidden chambers of your heart, you still believe that love must be earned, that you must prove yourself, that you must be useful to be loved. But what if you stopped? What if, instead of bending, you stood firm? Instead of pleading, you remained silent? Instead of chasing, you let go? That is when the game changes. There is a power in silence that most people never learn. A power in stillness, in absence, in the deliberate refusal to engage. Because when you stop feeding a dynamic, when you stop reacting, justifying, or trying to convince, something remarkable happens. The other person is forced to face the emptiness they've been asking you to fill. Think of the last time someone expected something from you, your time, your attention, your forgiveness, and you gave it freely, even when it cost you. Now imagine if you hadn't. Imagine if, instead of responding, you had simply stepped back, watched, allowed the silence to linger. what would have happened? Most likely, one of two things. Either they would have escalated, demanding a reaction, proving just how much they relied on your compliance, or they would have faded away, revealing that what they wanted was never you, just what you provided. This is the law of energy. What you feed grows, what you starve dies, and if you keep feeding relationships that drain you, they will continue to take. But if you withdraw, if you become a mystery instead of an open book, that is when you see who truly values you, not just what you do for them. Jung called this individuation the process of becoming whole, complete, no longer fractured by the demands of others, and it begins with a simple, terrifying act, choosing yourself. But be warned, when you start saying no, the world will react. People who once took your yes for granted will suddenly call you selfish. Those who fed on your energy will accuse you of changing. Lovers who liked you desperate will lose interest when you become indifferent. This is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is proof that you are doing something right. Because the truth is, most people do not want you to heal. They want you to remain predictable, available, trapped in the role they've assigned you. The caretaker, the listener, the one who is always there, no matter how badly they behave. But when you withdraw, when you refuse to play the game, that is when you see their true face, not because they are evil, but because they are confronted with something they cannot control, your autonomy. And here's the hardest lesson. Some people will leave, some will fight, some will vanish the moment you stop feeding them. Let them. Because the ones who stay, the ones who respect your silence, who value your presence without demanding it, those are the ones who deserve access to your energy. But before you can find them, you must first face the most important relationship of all. There is a version of you that you abandoned long ago, a version that didn't people please, didn't chase, didn't beg for scraps of love, a version that knew its own worth without needing to be told. That version still exists. It is buried beneath the layers of conditioning, beneath the fear of being alone, beneath the belief that you must earn love through sacrifice. Your task is not to find the right people. Your task is to become the right person for yourself. Because when you do, everything changes. The wrong people fall away, the right ones appear. Not because the universe magically rewards you, but because you stop accepting less than you deserve. So ask yourself today, what am I still giving to those who take me for granted? And then ask the more important question, what would happen if I stopped? There is a sacred power in absence, a transformative magic that occurs when you stop filling the silence with explanations, when you stop rushing to mend what others broke, when you refuse to be the architect of someone else's closure. Think of the last time you felt truly alone. Not lonely, but alone. That space where no one's voice drowned out your own. That is where the real work begins. Because in that quiet, you start to hear the whispers of the self you've been neglecting. The one that knows, without being told, what it will and will not accept. Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow. Not the shadow of others, but your own. The part of you that still believes you must be smaller to be loved, quieter to be heard, softer to be safe. But here's the truth. The right people will not ask you to shrink. They will not need you to dim your light so they can shine. They will meet you at your fullest, most unapologetic expression, not because they are rare, but because you have finally stopped entertaining those who cannot. So let me ask you, what would happen if, for 1 week, you stopped initiating? If you stopped checking in, stopped rearranging your schedule to accommodate others, stopped offering pieces of yourself to those who treat them as disposable, who would notice? Who would care? And most importantly, who would you become in that space of unclaimed energy? This is not a test of their loyalty. It is a test of your own. a test to see if you can remain loyal to yourself even when the world tries to guilt you back into old patterns. Because the paradox is this: the more you fear abandonment, the more you attract those who will abandon you. The more you cling, the more others pull away. But when you stand firm in your own worth, when you become a force of quiet, unshakable presence, the dynamics shift. Not because you manipulated them, but because you stopped playing the game entirely. And that is when the real magic happens. Every relationship you have is a choice. Not just the choice to stay or leave, but the deeper, more subtle choices you make every day. The choice to react or to observe, to engage or to withdraw, to plead or to remain silent. Most people live as if their relationships happen to them, as if they are passive recipients of love or victims of betrayal. But Jung's work reveals a harder truth. You are an active participant in every dynamic you attract, not because you are to blame for the wounds others carry, but because you choose how much of their weight you will bear. Think of the last time you felt trapped in a relationship, whether with a lover, a friend, or a family member. Now ask yourself, where did I hand over my power? Where did I confuse attachment with love? Where did I mistake familiarity for safety? The wrong people persist in your life not because they are stronger than you, but because some part of you still believes their presence is better than solitude. But what if the opposite were true? What if the solitude you fear is the very thing that will save you? Because here's the secret no one tells you. The right people do not drain you. They do not leave you questioning your worth. They do not demand proof of your loyalty. They simply meet you fully, without negotiation. But you will never find them if you remain entangled with those who see your love as an obligation. So the question is not, why do I keep attracting the wrong people? The question is, why do I keep choosing them? And the answer? That is where your freedom lies. Beneath every frustrating relationship pattern lies an ancient blueprint, a map of love drawn by a younger version of you who was just trying to survive. Can you feel it? That moment when someone's indifference makes your chest tighten, when their absence feels like abandonment, when their criticism lands like truth. These aren't random reactions, they're echoes. Jung taught us that what we refuse to remember consciously, we relive compulsively. The parent whose approval you couldn't earn, the childhood friend who betrayed your trust, the first love that made you feel disposable. They're all still here, whispering through every new person who touches that raw nerve. You think you're choosing partners, but really you're choosing familiar ground. What if your attraction to emotionally unavailable people isn't a mistake, but a reenactment? What if the chaos you keep recreating isn't random, but ritual? The psyche has a strange intelligence. It would rather replay painful patterns than face the terror of uncharted territory. Here's the turning point. The moment you realize your heart isn't broken, it's coded, and codes can be rewritten. There's a particular kind of silence that terrifies people. Not the silence of anger or punishment, but the silence of someone who has finally stopped explaining themselves. Watch what happens when you stop justifying your boundaries, when you stop soothing their guilt for crossing lines, when you simply let their behavior speak while you remain unmoved. This is where true discernment begins, in the quiet space between their actions and your reaction. The manipulative thrive on your engagement. The emotionally immature feed on your emotional labor. But when you become a mirror rather than a participant, that's when the masks start slipping. Jung warned that nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment than a person who has mastered their own shadow. This is your power play, not to change them, but to stop letting them change you. Not to convince them of your worth, but to become impervious to their valuation. The revolution begins in the pauses between words, in the breaths you no longer spend pleading, that hollow feeling after another failed connection. It's not proof you're unlovable, it's proof you're ready. Ready to stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. Ready to stop confusing obsession with care. The loneliness isn't your enemy. It's the crucible where your new relationships will be forged. There's a terrifying moment in this process when the old distractions stop working, when casual connections feel empty, when the games you used to play now taste like ashes. This isn't depression, it's awakening. Your soul is refusing to participate in the counterfeit anymore. Jungian analyst James Hollis writes that we don't so much solve our complexes as outgrow them. This is what's happening now. You're not failing at the old relationships, you're succeeding at a new standard you can't yet articulate. The void you fear, it's sacred ground. The right people will meet you there, not to complete you, but to celebrate the wholeness you've created.